but there's an obnoxiously loud cricket outside my window. It's just like wah, 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 wah. So regardless of the cricket noises, we're going to continue on our journey with the saints. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Maximilian Kolbe. His feast day was yesterday. By the time you see this, it'll be 2 days ago. Anyway, it's August 14th for future reference. And we're going to talk about him and his love for Our Lady and his, just his, I'm sure people have heard about Maximilian Kolbe, because a lot of people know him as the martyr of Auschwitz. And he's just this unrestricted love for everyone, the Jews, but then, of course, most of all, the stranger that he died for in Auschwitz, and, but that's not all about everybody knows that part of his life, but that's not all his life was. So we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the end, but we're going to talk about what he did before, like, what formed him into that, because, he's not a saint yet. John Hardin, Father John Hardin, he's a servant of God, but he said, we're not all called to die like martyrs, but we're all called to live like one. So you can't be a martyr if you haven't already sacrificed and given everything during your lifetime, and then you get the opportunity to die. So, that's what we're going to talk about, and it's going to be really cool, so just bear with me here. Okay. Maximilian Kolbe, so he's known by a bunch of different titles. Here are two of them, Martyr of Charity and Knight of the Immaculata. Knight of the Immaculata, I guess, came first, but I just put them in a different order on the screen. Okay, so he was born on January 8th, 1894, and then he died on August 14th, 1941. Okay, those are just boring dates. They're not boring, they're important, but we don't talk about dates. So what happened was the two big things. His name was Raymond, and he was Polish. And once he was a little troublemaker, and his mom said, "Raymond, what am I gonna do with you?" when she was frustrated with him. And so he went and prayed, and he said to the Virgin Mary, "What will become of me?" And then Mary appeared to him, and she was offering him 2 crowns. One was white for purity and chaste life, and then the other one was red for martyrdom. And she said, "Which one do you want, my son?" And he said, "I want both. Just take it all, like St. Therese says." So he accepted both. Of course, he didn't know how that was going to be lived out completely. So then, by God's intervention and providence, he was able to go to Franciscan Minor Seminary. The parish priest, or no, I can't remember if the parish priest or the local pharmacist taught him Latin, and then he went to minor seminary because his family was poor. He went to minor seminary, and then he continued to the priesthood, but he almost left to go fight for Poland. I guess it was World War I around that point. He almost left, but then his mother came and told him, since all the boys, at this point, all 3 of their sons were out of the house, they were all taken care of. She said, your father and I were committing ourselves to chastity, and basically they weren't married. They were acting like they weren't married anymore. They were going to live for the Lord completely. So he was going to leave and go fight for Poland because he had this warrior spirit, but because of what his mother said, he stayed. Thank the Lord and bless the Mother. Okay, so his work, we're gonna jump right into it. So he goes to seminary, he gets ordained, and when he was studying in Rome, he saw, I don't know what the date was, but he saw Freemasons in front of the Vatican, and they were chanting things against the Pope and saying, Pope was evil, Church was evil. It's like, this needs to be stopped. And so that's what he worked for. And here's the fourth line down says, "Modern times are dominated by Satan and will be more so in the future. The conflict with hell cannot be engaged by men, even the most clever. The Immaculata alone has from God the promise of victory over Satan." And it's definitely very clear in today's world, and this was 100 years ago when he said it. So he knew that Our Lady was the only one who was going to conquer, and so basically his idea was to conquer the whole world for Jesus through Mary. And I have to do another video on Marian Consecration. I kind of already have. I forget which one it was, but I know I've done one. And he was like, okay, we're going to conquer the world for Jesus through Mary, and we're going to basically he wanted to, okay, I'm going to choose one person, and we're going to become saints together, and then that person's going to choose, and then we're going to, spread out there, and then just this chain reaction of holiness, and then the whole world everybody will be saints. So, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but Catholics need to work on it. So basically he was he was working with Mary, or Mary was working with him to promote Mary, because she was the answer for our times, because, Fatima in 1917. And so he promoted Marian Consecration, and then he founded this order, this group of Franciscan friars. It's called the Militia Immaculata, Militia's Army of the Immaculate, to spread the Marian message. And so he opened monasteries in Poland, and then eventually he went to Japan. And he printed Marian material, and the magazine they printed was called Night of the Immaculata. And Nikoponovo was the largest monastery in the world. It was 500 or some. I think it was more than that. Brothers, that was his monastery in Poland. And then, as another thing, during World War II, before he was arrested, he hid over 2,000 Jews in the monasteries. Because he was just acknowledging their dignity as human beings, even if he didn't. Catholics, we get a lot from the Jews. That's just a whole nother discussion, but Catholics get a lot from the Jews. Jesus was Jewish. Anyway, another discussion. Okay, so this is what he's really known for. Everybody knows him as the martyr of Auschwitz. And so, February 17th, 1941, he was arrested for the second time. He had been arrested before, but then released, and then he went and continued his work. And the friars tried to get him to go in hiding and not wear the habit and shave off his long beard, but he's like, no, I'm a priest, and I'm going to work for Mary. And he said, I don't see difficulties anywhere. I see Mary everywhere. So he was arrested, and he was sent to a concentration camp called Pawiak, and then he was sent to Auschwitz, who were one of the worst concentration camps. I've actually been there. It's just so depressing and sad, and just darkness everywhere. I didn't get to go in. It was during World Youth Day, so I didn't get to go in the actual cells, which I probably wouldn't have been able to handle. But I just walking through it, it's just so silent and dead. And so while he was at Auschwitz and Pawiak, he wasn't at Pawiak very long, but he ministered and served the other prisoners as a priest. Of course, he was forced to do this really hard labor, and he was a sickly person. He had tuberculosis most of his life. But the Nazis hated priests not almost as much as Jews, but after Jews, they hated Catholic priests. And so, but at night and other times, he would hear confessions and just minister them as a priest and as a father. And so the big thing that happened was when one man escaped, ran away. They didn't find him, and when that happens, the Nazis choose 10 men to take his place, and they condemned him to death in a starvation bunker. And one of the men that they chose was a father and a husband, and when they chose him, he started breaking down, saying, please don't choose me. I have a wife, I have children, please don't choose me. And they're like, oh, whatever. They obviously don't care, but Father Kolbe stepped forward, and he said, take me instead of him. I will replace him. And then the officer said, who are you? And he said, I am a Catholic priest. And of course they hated Catholic priests, but they consented to his Maximilian, Father Kolbe, taking his place, and he was in the bunker for, it was either 2 weeks, 10 days, long time. He was the last one to die. They did lethal injection. They killed him with a lethal injection because he wouldn't die. And so he died on August 14th. That's his feast day. It's today. You won't see this until tomorrow or the next day after that. But I did this because it's feast day. And of course he completely embodies, everybody uses this quote, and he completely embodies a quote from John 15:13. No greater love than this, than a man lay down his life for a friend. And this was like a complete stranger. Father Maximilian didn't know him at all whatsoever. And so just like this complete love, we can see just willing to lay down his life for anyone, even if he didn't know him. And then here are some of my favorite quotes. The simple one, just don't ever forget to love. Don't ever forget to love. And then this one is so great. Never be afraid of loving the Blessed Virgin too much. You can never love her more than Jesus did. Like, Mary was Jesus' mom. Jesus loved his mom. And then here's another one. Let us remember that love lives through sacrifice and is nourished by giving. Without sacrifice, there is not love. Just because, love is sacrifice, willing to sacrifice for another, willing to go to the other. There, we just have to remember that like he says, without it, it's not really love. And then here's another one. A single act of love makes a soul return to life. And it's just like, St. Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Maximilian Kolbe and Mary, well, that's what we're going to focus on, because he just really embraced Marian Consecration and said, you know what, this is how I'm going to become a saint, this is how I'm going to change the world, because we're all called to do that. He just did it on a really big scale. So his idea was, I talked about this earlier, Mary can use me as an instrument so I can become holy, and through my holiness, I'm going to help others become holy. And Marian Consecration is a different topic, different video. But that's really what Maximilian Kolbe wanted to do. And he loved Our Lady so much. It's incredible how much he loved her. And I'm still really trying to do that. Shout out to our 33 Days to Merciful Love. It's a Marian Consecration book, and he's in there as one of the top 4 Marian saints, with John Paul II, Mother Teresa, and Louis de Montfort. So that's the main we're going to focus on. And then that's the main virtue that we're focusing on. And of course his unrestricted love, which we've talked about. And then I just wanted to say a quick thing on why he was canonized a martyr, because he wasn't killed for the Catholic faith like Isaac Jogues was, or like the Christians in the Middle East. They're not being killed because he wasn't killed because he was Catholic, although it kind of seemed like that. He says, I'm a Catholic priest. But I think it's safe to say he wasn't killed specifically because he was Catholic, although he was definitely persecuted because of that. But when he was being canonized, and there was a whole big to-do about it, John Paul II said, okay, I'm paraphrasing, and I hope I'm explaining this right, but he said the Nazis were violating a very fundamental right of the Catholic, they were a very fundamental teaching of the Catholic Church, that is the dignity of the human person. And St. Maximilian Kolbe, really, that's the reason he died, for the dignity of the human person, and that's why he's canonized a martyr, and I hope that really makes sense. But just remember, don't be freaked out that he did this like super sacrificial love. Sometimes just being nice to our siblings is the hardest thing in the world that day. I know it is for me sometimes, all the time. So really just do little acts of charity, and that's start there and then build. We're not all gonna end up dying. Hopefully none of us will end up in a concentration camp. Let's end with that. No, I forgot to say it. Good holy enough, I'm doing it, guys. Isn't that a better way of ending than Hopefully we don't end up in concentration camps.
This is what happens when I film at 11:40 at night.